Do you wonder why relationships feel so hard and peace seems so far away? If you grew up in the chaos of alcoholism and addiction, this is not unusual. Welcome to Faith Forward Podcast. My name is Sally New, and I'm so thankful that you're here today. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about why I am so fascinated with the field of recovery and why it's my mission to help every woman who has childhood scars from alcoholism and addiction to recover completely with the help of God from those scars, and also to learn how to draw doable, healthy boundaries in her life that promote peace. And if necessary, focus on recovery-oriented solutions for the members of her family that she loves so much. Well, I like to say I came down the birth canal saying three things. Is there a cupboard for me to clean? I'm highly OCD. I'll take those jeans in extra long because I'm 5'11". And where is the nearest Al-Anon meeting? Because I was born directly into the lap of alcoholism and addiction. Both of my parents were full-on alcoholics when I was born. And one of my earliest memories was watching a very chaotic scene between my parents in the hallway, and somehow knowing that, number one, I had to survive this, and number two, I was going to be on my own because there wasn't a lot of adults present in the room. Well, of course they were adults, but they weren't really acting like adults at that moment. So I actually began the process of raising myself, which I kind of did. Now, my mom, of course, she stepped in every once in a while, jerked the reins back, which I'm sure I needed, got me back in line, set me back on the right track. But I never had a lot of emotional nurturing or just kind of knowledge about how to cope with life, what life brings to you, and how you should negotiate it successfully to be a success. My parents did give me good examples in other ways, though. They were very affectionate. I'll always be glad for that. I could go up to either one of them, tell them I loved them. They would say they loved me, give me a hug, no matter what was going on. And that really was a great benefit. But our house was pretty much vacant. That's just how I grew up, and was parentified really at a very young age. At the age of 6, I remember my mom asking me if I thought she should divorce my dad. And I remember knowing that she shouldn't be asking me that question. And at the same time knowing that in her own way, she was trying to sort of get a read on how I would handle that, because I'm sure she was thinking about that pretty much from the get-go. I'm not sure why she lasted so long. My parents were divorced when I was 12 and got remarried shortly after that, and were divorced again when I was 19. And my parents were very, very different types of alcoholics. My mom was a highly functional alcoholic. She went to work every day, never missed a day of work because she had too much to drink. She was always very proud of that. Paid all of her bills, worked hard at work. She was the highest paid non-degreed employee at the Idaho State Board of Education. She worked there for 30 years. She was very, very proud of that. Really had a very stellar career by all respects. And I'm proud of her for that too, because she had a lot to deal with. And somehow she just rose above it and soldiered on. She was tenacious. She was a hard worker, highly organized, very efficient. And a lot of those traits she gave to me. I don't know that I'm as efficient as she was, but she was an extremely efficient person. but she was an alcoholic. And unfortunately, in the long run, alcoholism took her life. She died alone. That was what she wanted. She lived alone. And when my brother and I would attempt to check on her and see how she was, and we couldn't get a hold of her, we would call the neighbors. And then she would admonish us, quit calling the damn neighbors, I'm fine. So we finally stopped calling the neighbors. I mean, what were we gonna do? Keep calling the neighbors? She told us not to. We didn't want to make her mad because that was never fun. And so for 2 or 3 days, I couldn't get a hold of her. Actually, on my birthday and a few days after that, and she died alone. And we found her 3 days later. And when I went to her doctor, just to verify what I thought was probably true, she died of the long-term effects of alcoholism abuse. But I knew that there was hope for her. And she'd never really given her heart to the Lord in front of me or voiced a faith that Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and I've asked him to forgive me of my sins. But she did talk a lot about God, and she talked a lot about God's forgiveness. She didn't want to talk too much about Jesus or if she was a Christian or whatever. So I didn't push it because you just didn't push stuff with Mom. I asked the Lord for a sign. And then I remembered that there's a verse that says there's an evil and adulterous generation asks for a sign. So I thought, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, whatever, Lord. If you're going to give me one, you can give me one. If not, whatever, no big deal. And about a year later, I had actually forgotten about that prayer. Right before I woke up in the morning, I remember it so clearly. I was dreaming that the phone rang. Picked up the phone. Hello. She said, hi, honey, it's me. And it was my mom. And she sounded so young and so strong. And I was just floored. And I said, Mom, you're alive. You're alive. I thought you had died. You're alive. She said, I'm doing very well. And I said, well, have you talked to Dave? That was my brother. She said, I just got off the phone with him. And right then, the dream was over. But I know that was the Lord sending me a sign that he had taken her safely home. I was so thankful and grateful for that. My dad, on the other hand, had a little more rugged trip. He actually did find sobriety, but it took a while and it got really bad before he found sobriety. It was debatable whether, I don't know, he would live a lot longer. He would, get drunk, wreck the car, DUIs, be in jail, be in the hospital. It was just a royal mess. He would become suicidal. He would get very, very ill and throw up, and he would injure himself. And I mean, it was just ongoing. And I didn't know if he would get sober, really. I don't want to say I'd lost hope, but in the natural, I probably did. So I was real surprised when one day he called me, early 80s, said he had stopped drinking. And I was just like, what? And he had stopped drinking, started going to AA, took a few tries. He didn't go to rehab, he just went to AA and became very active in AA, was a strong 12-stepper for a good 20 years. And he and my stepmom lived in Southern California. And he did very well financially. He was extremely talented, very bright. He was like a completely different person. He made amends, and I had a good relationship with him until he relapsed in the early 2000s. And then the relationship was not so great for a while, but eventually he sobered up again, and I had the privilege of taking care of him the last 6 months of his life. And he came to the Lord. He actually became Catholic as well, and he died sober. It was a beautiful experience. It was a difficult experience to care for somebody in their last season of life, but I'm so glad that I did. I wouldn't change it for anything. And all of those experiences, along with several other family members that I have and love deeply that struggle with addiction, gave me this passion for recovery, because I have experienced inner healing, and I have experienced really just the benefits of recovery and of healing the broken heart. And I know that there is no hurt so deep that Jesus can't heal. And that is some of the best news that we can ever get in our life. So I have a passion to help women who have been broken by a childhood affected by that type of trauma, and also who are currently living in sometimes complex situations where you make daily decisions to help, not to help, what's the best thing. If you're there, you know what I mean. So I am a certified life coach, and I work with women with those particular issues. And I would love it if you would reach out to me and let me know what's going on with you. You can leave a comment. I will pray for you. Be very glad to pray for you. You can download a free document that will just get you started on the path to healing, let you experience some peace, because Jesus has peace for us along the way, and ultimately in the end, of course, a completely healed heart when we get to heaven, where nothing is ever wrong again. So I really appreciate you listening to this episode of Faith Forward Coaching Podcast. And next time, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my healing journey and the wonderful work that the Lord did for me, surprising work that the Lord did for me, and some of the things that He taught me along the way. So I can't wait for that. I hope you'll tune in. See you then, guys. Bye.